and have enjoyed the session so far. Amazing
Love it.
people, really humbled and honored to be here with you guys.
Yeah, well, Larissa said I had to get you on here. So, so I'm super grateful. And, and that comes back to this. I mean, I think one of the overarching themes of everyone so far today has been the importance of connection and the importance of having an open heart. And that theme is just keeps coming through here. So her recommending you to me, and then you and I, we could have just talked for hours the other day. Like it was so great. And so yep, share about yourself, Teg, a little bit, and just let's dive right in.
Sure. I'm just going to start in I've been a husband for 28 years. I'm a dad, have 3 boys, ages 24, 21, and 15. For the past 33 years, I've been an educational-based athletic director, basically just using athletics to teach life lessons to kids. And with that there's a whole ecosystem in there that you're helping to develop to do that. In January, I stepped away from that, and I'm actually kind of introducing myself. I've never introduced myself this way before, and I'm doing it because we've been talking about identity and self-identity, and I'm excited to do what I'm doing now. I always said I always got up and never felt like I had to work a day in my life. And then the last year I got to a point where it was getting a little bit harder. When I'm with the kids, it's fine. But so with that, I'm just, recreating, there's 30 years of when you're being an athletic director, it's a grind. It's a lot of hours, a lot of days, a lot of nights. My wife knew that when we started dating. I was working at Yale. I worked 7 days a week. We had weekend basketball games, and the basketball game would end at 9, and myself and 10 football players from the Yale football team would then break down the gym and set it up for the gymnastics meet the next day. And I'd lock up and leave the Payne Whitney gym at 1 o'clock in the morning so I could be back at 7:30 for that. So she's kind of done that. And so it's created bad habits in terms of certain things. But basically my goal is just to take that energy to continue to work with students and coaches and families, and just help their kids have the best experiences that they can in any facet of their life, and hopefully give them, lifelong skills to be successful in whatever they choose to do. So that's kind of where I'm at these days. One of the things I wanted to try to talk about today too is in my transition, but as Larissa has alluded to when we were talking about the cell phone use, but just when we look at young people today, and that's kind of been my heavy audience over the last 20, 25 years is, the K-12 environment. But you look at, and all the reports are coming out from CDC and mental health organizations about the issues of socialization, loneliness. We're still spinning out of the impact of COVID. The impact of cell phones as well has been something significant, and even finding myself diving more into as I'm working with Larissa, and just the social emotional learning. And then something that we talked about today too, just there's a leadership vacuum, a significant leadership vacuum, top down. And that's kind of created a different burn and desire for me to do the work that I want to do now. We need to figure out ways to get people in a position to feel comfortable being uncomfortable, having difficult conversations, stepping into the fire, and trusting themselves with what they believe is right, and being able to step up and fight for it. So today, I think the concept that you have here, Elle, the pressure-free leadership concept, to me, has allowed me to think about some things a little bit differently too. So today, just some thought-provoking questions as we hopefully can have some, dialogue as well. The impact of pressure-free concepts. How does that impact leaders and the leadership mindset in themselves? What does pressure-free leadership mean to you? I think that there's some different things there in terms of how do you get to that. Henry Ford had a statement: whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. I mean, just right there, right? It's a very simple statement. What you put in here is going to happen. The things that we talked about earlier during the day, that your self-talk, right? Is it positive self-talk or negative self-talk? So, how do you start your day when you get up in the morning? One thing I want to share, introducing my family. My boys were younger, like I loved to be the one that got to wake them up in the morning. and go to the crib, and at that age where they could talk a little bit. And so the first thing I do, hey bud, it's the three boys. So, hey bud, how'd you sleep last night? And you get some kind of good answer. I slept okay. They might share a fun dream they had or something like that. And then the next thing I would say, and I don't even remember how I started doing this or I got to do it, but I started it with my oldest. Like, what kind of day are we going to have today, bud? And I think he probably just said, I'm going to have a good day. I said, no, we're going to have a great day. And that just became a tradition and a mindset, basically setting that mindset for a 18-month-old, getting up every morning and doing it. And what did that do? It helped train me at the same time. So I just kind of love that story in terms of when we talk about leadership mindset and everything else. It can start at a young age.
I love it so much. It's so beautiful. Yeah. I sang my kids awake every morning.
As you're right, bringing your gift of music in. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of just, leadership mindset, the goal is to empower people and to give them the ability to be themselves and teach them to the point, like, how do they, like, giving forward, how can they impact and influence others as well? So it goes into this, to me, a legacy mindset. Can you create something that when you aren't here or you walk away, it is still there, the foundation of it is still there, and it's still growing, and it's even getting better, and someone's making it better than, we all heard that, leave it better than you found it, as well. So there's pillars that I kind of created after my first stint in interscholastic athletics and working on a foundation of a philosophy. And over time, it was never in this order, but then somehow figured out I love acronyms. So the acronym of FACTS. And so FACTS to me is, you can use F, and faith and family, right? Faith in people, faith in a higher being, family. Everybody has a family. The 21st century family is much different than, the family that I grew up in the late 60s, early, in the 70s and 80s. But if you can understand and have awareness of what your role is in a family, however your family makeup is, like when I talk to kids, like, when we talk about roles, like, do you have a certain job? Like, what would happen if you weren't there with your family? And you get a whole bunch of different answers. Someone might not be there to get my little sister off the bus after school every day, or my job's to fold the laundry, or whatever. You start to get them to recognize that they're part of a unit that has a mission, that loves each other, and they got to accomplish something. So that's the F part of FACTS. A, again, if you remember my setting, kind of student athletes, educational. So I use the term academics, A for academics. Let's broaden that for our conversation today. Adults, academics is about learning, growth mindset. How can you get better? Just using your ability to do as much as you can with what you have. C, community. Being a part of a community, being able to give back to something, understanding, like, again, when we, talk to kids and you're part of a team and you have your name, your school name or your town across your chest. It's even little league kids, Joe's Dairy. You're representing something there, and you talk to them about that. If you have a name on your back, it's not about your name on the back. It's about you're part of something bigger. So you start to try to introduce that concept, and then over time get kids involved into being servant leaders and being involved in their community. And so we teach them about that. And then the T is for team. And team and family, to me, are, again, in the world that I've been in the 33 plus years of doing this, are intertwined. They're so intertwined. A team has to become a family. Always, teams have issues. Kids get in fights. They argue. They compete about playing time and all these other things. And all these different conversations come up. And I'm like, guys, is your family perfect? I've yet to meet one person that can look you in the eye and say, I have the perfect family. Well, guess what? Our team isn't perfect either. But here's how do you work things out with your family? How do you get them to be better? What are some things within your family that aren't good that you wish you could have better? Well, guess what? That we got to do that within our team. So understanding your role, and if you struggle with a role in your family, I'm going to be that person that coach is going to have to do a little bit of extra work with to get you to understand what a team is and what you're doing there, and putting your team, putting others before yourself. And then the last piece of this is S, and that's self. And that's actually the most important piece. Because if you don't have your act together per se, then you're going to have troubles impacting all those other areas. So a lot of the things that we're talking about today in terms of mental health, mental fitness, the concepts of self-awareness, self-confidence, dealing with anxiety, emotional state, what are the things that you can do physically, mentally? And I did my undergrad at Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts, in sport management. They're known as the triangle. It's not the mascot, but the triangle: spirit, mind, and body. So you have all those levels there. So, if you talk about the physical component, obviously, in terms of the body, the mind is the emotional, intellectual component, and then spirit is just kind of your being and your consciousness and being aware of what is around you. And you need all those three things working together to be the best that you can be. And the people that you've had on today have spoken to this so eloquently, and the people that you've put together, it is all intertwined. It's just like, I've got goosebumps just talking about it, thinking about the last couple of hours that I've been listening to everybody as well. So those are the pillars that I've used and tried to hit on with every person that I work with in a system. Those above me, the boards of education, the elected leaders that are there, the upper administration, like your superintendents and principals and all that. And then you've got teachers and coaches. And then you've got the outside community that want to support your teams and your educational process. And then obviously the parents and families. And so attacking those areas over time allow you to hopefully create the culture that you want. Kind of define culture as the way we do things here. Within my own household, there's certain things we might want to do, and that's the way the Cosgriffs are doing it. Doesn't mean that's the same way the Ingalls are going to do it. We might, want the same things for our families and kids, but based upon our experiences and what we've learned over time, we figure that stuff out on our own. So you had it, Larissa and I talk about the ecosystem. So you have all those components of the ecosystem there to set the culture, and then over time, hit on that IQ piece that people have talked about too. So IQ for yourself is your own situational awareness and self-awareness, and how much do you know about what are you good at, what do you need to grow in, and hopefully have a growth mindset that you can get better every day. Within a team in a school, when you start to get people working together and on the same page, and earlier someone used the term alignment, getting everybody aligned, all of a sudden you kind of have a team IQ. In a sport, you have a sport IQ, a baseball IQ, how do you learn about the game? Coaches will talk about certain kids, like, how did you know you needed to make that play? Sometimes they just knew, or they just watched stuff. And then that just kind of creates that culture, and you create this alignment across the board for everybody in your ecosystem. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, it's just really good. I was just kind of chuckling, thinking of how my eldest, he was still in diapers, and he thought he was the Michigan basketball player, Maurice Taylor. Like, he thought he was him. He walked like him. He dribbled like him. He was still in diapers. And he just thought he'd go, "Hub Pump Taylor." That means here comes Taylor. I mean, he just, the influences that we have, and how kids will also really glom on to someone that they respect their skills, or their, they'll look to that. And so I was just smiling, thinking about our team, the team culture in our family. And he taught, my younger son couldn't even walk yet, and he was shooting hoops in the living room. Like, he was crawling with the ball and then shooting. Like, it was hilarious, but we learn,
Yep. Yeah, no, and it's really powerful. Like, in terms of going back to a family, a year ago, I had to work with a family that was had to move them out of our school district, and the dad needed help actually communicating it to his boys. And he's like, "We love this place. This place is, the blood of this place just runs through our bodies. My boys are so connected. This is going to be really hard." And I had to have a sit down with this one boy who was a sophomore, loved him dearly, and got to, in a short period of time, had already connected with him. And he's in my office talking to him. He just broke down. And this is the stuff I get emotional about too. And he just looked at me, he goes, "But this is my family. I can't leave here. You guys are my family. That football team that we just rebuilt from nothing to something. where we could show up every day. They didn't win a game. They went 0-10, but guess what? They showed up every day. That was his family. The season before, when we were rebuilding it, they only were able to complete half a season because they ran out of players. And we were able to do some other stuff and rebuild the team, go from 28 to 54 in 1 year. And he was part of that family. So that kind of work, when you can get that response out of a kid that young, is there's rewards for the work that we do, and that you're kind of having that kind of impact. The academic side of things, the growth mindset, an example there, working with a coach that had a very veteran coach with a reputation of writing hard on officials. He was a girls basketball coach and writing hard on his players. And we actually, a veteran coach, and I was that young guy. I was talking about being that young guy coming in. And I said, look, I said, this is how I'm wired. I need to address this with you. I've had peers of mine growing up that play with you. Here's some feedback. What can we do? And I was ready to get blown up in my face. And to his credit, he listened and he worked at it. And we had strategies. And I'll never forget, there was halftime of a game, and the officials in the middle of the game we were halfway through a season, came up to me and said, hey, we need to talk to you about Coach so-and-so. I'm like, oh my God, what did he say? What did he do? In my head, and like, what's the matter? I'm like, is he okay? I'm like, what do you mean, is he okay? Well, we know he's had health issues before. Is he sick again? Like, why are you asking me this? He hasn't talked to us all game. He's just been coaching his girls. He hasn't righted us for one call. And I said, thanks, that's great. That's what we're working on. And so there's, so when you talk about that stuff, so that's an adult mindset stuff that I work on in my world when I'm with K-12, 4-year-olds all the way up to 19-year-olds. And then you're dealing with adults of all different ranges.
Yeah.
The C piece and community. One of the things when I got back into interscholastic athletics, I took a college model of community service that we had at Yale and tried to introduce it into our own hometown. And we started to do things where we put the student athletes in the community working with young kids. And it wasn't just about giving to the young kids. There's other things that you could do there too. It heightens awareness about your programs. But at the end of the day, it's more powerful for the older kids going into the community. They get more back. We tell them you're role models, all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden they're in front of these young people looking up to them. They're asking them for their autographs. When's your next game? Can I come to your next game? And those kids show up to the game because they go home at dinner time and say, Mom, Dad, there's a football game at 7:00 at night. I need to go see Joey play. I need to go see Susie play. Do that. And then what it did was it empowered our kids. And then I'm like, guys, I need you to come up with your own ideas. So one thing that happened, a young man came up to me, and his mom was a reading teacher. And she came up to me and said, I want to create a reading program where our football team goes down on Friday afternoons before our home games, and we read to the elementary school kids. I'm like, that sounds fantastic. He goes, we already got it planned out. We're going to identify books of character and all these kind of things, and we're going to do that. So this was back in 2002. My 2 older boys were probably 2.5 and about six months old at the time. So the program hits. It's a legacy program. It still exists today. I remember the day that my boys were in elementary school and couldn't wait to tell me who came to read to them.
Right.
And then my oldest son's a junior in high school, and he comes to me and he goes, guess what I got to do today? I have no idea. Tell me. He goes, I got to go down and read to the elementary school. And he was so fired up. And I'm still in touch with the boy that started that program. He's a young 40-something now. And just, hey, dude, I got to let you know, I know this program's still going on, but the impact that it's had, it's amazing. And then a whole bunch of other teams, have done it as well.
Yeah.
In terms of the team stuff, just working with kids on what is being a good teammate and how to do that and the impact that has in other parts of school culture. If you can be a good teammate, you can be a good friend. And then the self piece, the self-awareness and the self-confidence is so important in terms of things that we can do for kids there. And I know we're running out of time. The last piece I wanted to hit on today too, in terms of like some strategies for pressure-free leadership, basically it's what we can control. Like at some point, like I like to tell kids and adults, work on getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That stuff is always going to be around, the distractions, the noise, and how can you do that? And so, in a team practice session, a coach will put you in pressure situations. So hopefully the game is easier, right? Practice should be harder, and the game part is fun. and that preparation and that teaching and all those components that are there around is for. So the feedback loop, the mental feedback loop, it's very easy to give feedback in terms of, hey, Elle, you lined up in the wrong gap on this play. What did you see? What happened here? But when you start to get kids where you can do feedback loop, and again, this is with adults too, how did you feel when this was happening? What did you notice about your body? How did it react when this happened? When this adverse situation happened, what did you feel? How did you react? Was that the right reaction, the response to it? Brian Kite talks about outcomes, right? An event which you have no control over, plus your response is going to equal or impact the outcome. So those kind of conversations that you can have over time and get kids to really figure that out and bring that into a point where they actually do start doing that on their own. Because over time, you're going to get the negative emotions going to lower. You're going to see the positive emotion go up. The self-confidence is going to go up. The anxiety is going to go down when you focus on those things. Way back, learned that the Positive Coaching Alliance has this thing called the Elm Tree of Mastery, which I really love. And the E, again, another acronym, the E is for effort. And, the mastery part is effort. The non-mastery side is called you look at the scoreboard, wins and losses. Everything's measured by wins and losses. Who has more runs, who has less runs. Forget about that. Focus on the process, focus on your effort, control your effort. Those good things will come. The L is the learning piece. You need to be open to learning and be open to growth. And as opposed to, on the other side, it would be comparing yourself to others. You show up, you get off the bus, you look out and go, oh my gosh, those guys are monsters. They're so much bigger than us. They're going to pound us. That's versus just saying, you know what? I'm here to learn. I'm here to get better. I'm going to work with my team. We're going to do. And then the M part is mistakes are okay. Mistakes are going to happen. You can't be perfect. So how do you deal with that? And it goes back to the L piece. That's the best way to learn. It's learn from your mistakes and move forward. So if you can, with working with kids, if you can create that, use that, I like using that Elm Tree of Mastery. It's a very simple way to bring it down. Because again, it comes back to lowering anxiety, boosting self-confidence, and then allowing kids to actually, through that feedback loop, even provide feedback to each other, teach them how to provide feedback to each other, where they can not necessarily have to be coaches in certain things, but they can learn to trust each other and build off of each other. It's just a really powerful tool to be able to do that. There was an event that I was a part of, and we had a female Blue Angel on there named Mace Curran, and she talked about the flight debriefs afterwards. And they were fairly immediate. They were within about an hour after they got out of their plane, which was basically just enough to get out of your plane, get some gear off, go to the bathroom, maybe grab a water and go into a thing. And then they break everything down. And I kind of, in my mind, broke it down to like a session of a football team breaking down their game from Friday night. Can you imagine a football game where you have to break down your game amongst your teammates and your coaches an hour after the game in full detail? No, you do it the next day, you sleep on it. The coaches probably don't sleep too much, and they break everything down. You get everybody in the room and you do it. One of the things that I asked her was like, how do you do that so quickly with your team? Like, and so heavy and critical. And it's just honest feedback right up. And the leadership right off the bat has to set that up, that we can't get better if we don't do this. This isn't about you. This is about us as a unit getting better.
Right.
Very detailed and very firm, and you can't take it personal, and we're all here together to get better. And to be able to set that tone, you walk into that meeting, she says, you know what you screwed up. She goes, it might look great from the outside, and wow, Mace is flying around and buzzing around and they're doing all this stuff. And she knew everything that went wrong. And then they get in that room and it's getting broken down and whatever, and how tough that is. So I think being able to create those cultures where people can give on their team, within their family, that honest feedback. And there's different ways you can do that, as a parent, excuse me, or, a coach, sometimes just asking for permission. Hey, can I give you some feedback on this? Can we talk about this situation? If the answer is no, is there a good time you'd feel better? Well, let me know. It empowers them. More often than not, you don't hear them saying no. they'll let you in and you can start to have that conversation. So, so those are some
Love it.
concepts of my life, my world, and different things I think that over time can relate to, what we've been talking about today with pressure-free leadership mindsets.
Yeah. And the reason I actually came up with pressure-free leadership is because of the effects of the inability to deal with pressure and how it affects leaders. So their heart disease, their issues, their actual physical and mental issues. And so like I dedicated my first book to my dad. My dad died too young, and he had high blood pressure in his 30s, just like Leela had mentioned. It's just like really incredible. And I see we have a note here from Ziz. If you were at Yale, you weren't there 2014, 2018, were you? Yeah.
No, but I'm 20 minutes away. And I'd Ziz, love to know what sport you said your son played. No, because I still follow closely, still have some last 3 years with a new AD. The staff has changed a lot there, but still follow it and try to get to games when I can. So love to learn more about your son.
And of course, there's the Ingalls rink at Yale too.
Yes.
That is a distant relative of my husband. That was named.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They come from the same ancestor. In fact, we visited the Pomfret, Connecticut house. It was for sale. The same ancestor that David Sinton and Ingalls.
That's a famous piece of architecture, right? It's called the Yale Whale because of this.
The Yale Whale.
Yep, with the spine and everything.
Yep. Yeah. When my son and I were touring the schools, we took a picture of ourselves in front of it. We tried to get in. We couldn't get in. We tried to get in every rink in every city, like Montreal, we get in. It's hilarious. It's just a thing we do. But I just have one last question for you. And that is, do you feel that there's this lack of leadership? Like in so many ways, there's like a lack of leadership. And the lack of leadership is because people are afraid to take these leadership roles because of some of the stuff they have to deal with today, parent-wise, student-wise. Do you feel that, Teg? I
do, and and when I got into my first administrative role, which would have been 1990, where I oversaw coaches and other staff members, so I was like 31, 32. Then I was like, that was 1998, and I felt that way too because coaches were definitely under fire. Like I wasn't in my office for 24 hours, and I had phone calls about complaints of coaches I didn't even get a chance to meet or supervise yet. And right, so I always, I've said, my job is to take care of the students, 1A, 1B, take care of my coaches and have their back. And there's a whole bunch that goes in with that, right? Being very communicative so that I know what they're doing. I don't want to micromanage them, but I need to know what their thought processes are. I need them to not be intimidated when I ask them a question about what they're doing, how or why. It's not necessarily me questioning them. It's me making sure I don't want to always assume that I understand how or why they're doing it. But if I get, especially in my environment, like I just might be going through the supermarket and get hit up by 5 different parents about 5 different stuff. And it's very easy for me. It's easier for me to say, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, we talked about that last week or whatever. Usually shuts it down as opposed to having to play it down. Yeah, I'm aware of that. And then, hey, what's going on here? Let's figure that out. But then that has to go up to the top. Like, I need, if I'm reporting to people, I need to have that same relationship. And when people from above are, hey, they're unhappy with something, they, in our world, if, they go after a coach, and if they can't get the result they want, like having a coach removed, well, who's supposed to be responsible for that? It's me. Well, if I can't get rid of the coach, guess what? We'll get rid of the athletic director, and then we'll work on the coach again. And they'll try to wear people down. And I've seen this for 30 plus years. It's just the environment. And you need to know that when you're going into it. Otherwise, you're not going to survive. But you need to have people, those positions are so political as well. They try to maneuver. And that's where, you need to be honest up front, have your vision, stick with it. And that's what, who wants to step into that today? And especially now when you've got this, right? So all of a sudden it's taken on a whole new life. And why do you want to subject, a lot of these people make these decisions, not necessarily about themselves, but about the people that are close to them. Like,
Right.
I don't want to subject my family to this. I don't want
Oh,
to,
right. Yeah.
you know, my
Yeah.
my oldest was 3 years old when I had a giant rock thrown through my dining room window. My wife's like, "What's going on?" At like 2 o'clock in the morning, and
Wow.
someone was happy about a coaching decision that, who was hired. I mean, the
Wow.
timing of it, you were able to glue it together. You didn't know who threw it. It wasn't random. It was weird.
It was
So
weird.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. And today, and that's kind of, again, part of my burn is working with. You got to train people for this. You just can't throw them into the fire and roll the dice and hope they figure it out.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
need to have certain training and preparation
Yeah.
and strong people around you. You need that village, and you need to have a cadre of people to support you.
Yeah, so true. Well, Teg, thank you so much. This is fantastic. Having been a youth sports coach myself and had those people grab me in the supermarket, I totally get it. And then I was a coach's wife. My husband coached hockey for 18 years. And I remember being accosted by a parent. I go, "Hey, I coach track. I don't coach hockey." That was my line. Like, you got to talk to him. I'm just the coach's wife here. That's not
Gotcha.
my deal. Well, yeah, this is so good. Thank you so much for your insights. And yeah, I can't wait to talk to you again. We've had a great relationship created here, and that's part of what's going on here today.
For sure. And thank you for this opportunity.
All right, we will stop the recording. And next, we're going to bring out